Hey guys, Xaryu here, and today I want to talk about a spec that I talked about briefly in my Frost Mage 8.0 video, but that is Glacial Spike versus kind of Ray of Frost versus Thermal Void a little bit, but I want to talk about specifically in this video, Glacial Spike. Alright, so I kind of browsed right past it when I was talking about it in my last, or 2 videos ago, but I want to kind of shed some more light on it now that Mage Mastery has changed. So I'm going to start this video off by looking at Mage Mastery. So casting, if we go ahead and read this together, casting Frostbolt or Flurry, okay, Frostbolt or Flurry grants you an Icicle. Casting Ice Lance causes all icicles stored to begin launching at the target, dealing 475 frost damage each. Up to 5 icicles can be stored. Any excess icicles will automatically be launched, and increases the damage of Frozen Orb by 35%. So this is a huge difference. I mean, it's very similar, but very, very different than last expansion. So at first difference is it's Frostbolt and Flurry, not just Frostbolt. What does this mean? It means you can get icicles much quicker than you previously could than if you were just trying to build them with only Frostbolts, how it used to be. Also increases the damage of Frozen Orb, so that means your orb's going to be hitting harder. And then the damage is different too, so if you guys didn't catch that, they each deal a flat amount of damage based on how much mastery you have, instead of doing a percentage of that Frostbolt or, yeah, I guess just a percentage of that Frostbolt or Flurry. It's not based on the Frostbolt damage anymore. So it doesn't matter if you use something like Ice Form to get bigger Frostbolts to get bigger Icicles. That's not how it works, right? It's just a flat rate based on your mastery. So guys, mastery, we know it's from Frostbolts and Flurries, okay? We know it's a flat rate, and we know it increases the damage of Frozen Orb. So what does this mean? It means a talent like Glacial Spike, all of a sudden, we might want to take a second look at. We can get to full stacks much quicker. The damage is much more consistent, whether it's consistently high or consistently low. I guess we don't know yet, but you will later in this video. But the Glacial Spike, the reason it wasn't taken was because it would hit for almost nothing, or it would hit sometimes respectable amounts, but it would vary a lot. And then the second reason it wasn't taken is just because it's very difficult to actually land one, and I'll show you guys that in Arena later. So when would you maybe want to use Glacial Spike here? Just at the start of this video, when would you maybe want to try out Glacial Spike? There's not enough time if you're doing double DPS 2v2. Alright, let me just tell you that. If you're doing double DPS 2v2, a lot of the times it's going to be very difficult to get 5 Frostbolts or Frostbolts and Flurries off to get that Glacial and then cast it before you're just going to die. Right? So you'd much rather burst in a much simpler way using, well, you can spec Ray of Frost, but the thing about Ray of Frost, guys, is that you essentially have your Icicles being able to unleash on your Ice Lances. So when I say Ray of Frost, you think of, okay, Ray of Frost, but then you also think of, we have the ability to launch all of our Icicles with a single Ice Lance, whereas if you read this last line of Glacial Spike, Ice Lance no longer launches Icicles, right? You get Glacial Spike instead of your Icicle launching ability, okay? So think of Glacial Spike as a big way to burst, but it's casted, and think of Ray of Frost. We're not even talking about Ray of Frost, we're talking about getting the ability to launch fingers at will with Ice Lance. Okay, so if you're playing a spec like Ray of Frost, like we talked about in the last video, it is very good to just throw out an Orb, a Comet Storm, an Ice Nova, and Ice Lances, and guess what? Ice Lances launch all of your Icicles as well. That's a lot of bursts, and guess what? You didn't cast once, and it's instant cast. It's very easy to get off. It can't be stopped, stuff like that. So that's the appeal of Ray of Frost. You get your fingers, you get this beam that you can channel through a pillar if you need to, and it's all instant cast burst if you don't want to cast. Now, the appeal of Glacial Spike is that it just hits very hard, as I'll show you guys here in a second. It's consistent, and you can stack up these Icicles much quicker, but you would never want to use it in a situation like a 2v2 without a healer. You never want to use it in a situation where it's a super setup-based comp and you only have a few second burst windows, because it's going to be hard to get it off. So like an RMP, I would think that if you're running RMP, you'd probably just want to run Ray of Frost, maybe even Thermal Void, because Glacial Spike just is very difficult to actually get off. If you don't get it off, boom, your hold goes over, versus the other way to burst, it's huge bursts and you can't get stopped, right? So on very setup-based things where you have small timing windows, like Rogue Mage, like Windwalker Mage has been in the past. Ray of Frost is probably the go. But when is Glacial Spike maybe worth it? Maybe worth it playing double caster where you kind of sit out in the open. And what the first comp that comes to mind that Glacial Spike might be very good in, well, there's a couple, but Destro, Warlock, and Frost Mage, and then maybe a Resto Shaman, right? Why is that good? Because if you're casting a Glacial Spike and you're casting a Chaos Bolt, the enemy team has to be like, which one should we stop? Should we stop the Glacial or should we stop the Chaos Bolt? It's very hard to stop both. If they stop both, guess what? They're out of kicks for 20 seconds and you're good to go for a while, and now you can cast both of them, okay? So it's just like, you have to pick your poison. Do you want to get hit by a Spike or do you want to hit by a Chaos Bolt? That's the first comp that I think it might be good in, because guess what? You get to pick your positioning. Double caster, sit out in the open. The enemy team has to come to you. If they don't come to you, you just sit there and wait for them to come to you. And if you wait till 100% dampening, then you'll win anyway because you have bigger burst, right? You sit in the back and wait for them to come in. You pop your Glacial and your Chaos Bolt, and then they pretty much are forced to run away. That's how this comp has traditionally been played, and I think it might be good again, depending how all the scaling works, but I think it might be good again at 120. Now, with Glacial Spike, I think it could also maybe work with Shadow Priest God comp. So Shadow Priest, Frost Mage, either Holy Paladin or Resto Druid, depending on how the meta shifts out. But just double caster once again, right? The Shadow Priest is spreading dots. You're casting the Spike. Should we stop the Vampiric Touches? Should we stop the Spike? If they do stop the Spike, well, that's a kick out of the way for your Priest to cast more. So it's just kind of that threat, that scary threat. And then you don't need to just burst in small windows as a comp like Shadow Priest Mage. You can with the Hammer of Justice, but then your consistent pressure and getting those big spikes off to get someone low and then throwing out the Silence Hajj works as well, right? So that could definitely be viable in a Shadow Priest God comp. And then just any type of double caster, it could be good in too. So maybe I'm thinking maybe Affliction Warlock Mage, Shadow Priest Mage, Boomy Mage, anything like that. So that's where I think Glacial Spike might thrive. And I didn't mention that in my video, so I wanted to make a whole different video talking about Glacial Spike in the new mastery. But let's also jump into some clips so I can show you guys how much damage it's actually doing. Alright guys, this is just a duel, and it's not even a real duel. This rogue is letting me test damage onto him. This is a duel from my stream the other night, and this was me being a little know-it-all. Someone in my chat was like, alright, can you test out Glacial? Because I was like, I want to test out stuff to see if it's good or bad. And I was like, come on guys, Glacial's not very good. We know that. It doesn't do much damage, and even if it did a lot of damage, then it's very difficult to land it. So just don't run Glacial. And then I was like, you know what? I just said I would test things out. I'll test it out for you, you know? So I was just like, I'll test it out anyway. This is my first time testing it out. I casted the Glacial and paired it with a Flurry and an Ice Lance, and it took him from 100 to 30. Okay, of course, this is level 110. The scaling's not in, blah, blah, blah. But that's still very, very sizable damage. So I was like, wait a minute. That's a lot of damage. What are you losing out on? You're losing out on Icicles? Okay, that's pretty good. So then I was, I think in this duel we were just kind of testing a little bit more. But you can literally 100 to 0 someone in that Glacial. I was like, wow, that's great. This actually could be used in some circumstances. So then I was testing it a little bit more. And but see, that's the normal burst right there, just the Comet Storm Ice Nova without even the Ice Lance or the Icicles. And that's very strong too. So that's why it's kind of hard to be like, we'll give up some of our big bursts to get some of that casted burst like I was talking about earlier. But yeah, the Glacial just hits very hard. But I want to show you guys in an arena match why it's sometimes difficult to play it. Because I know what you guys are thinking. If it's hitting someone from 100 to 30, that's OP. Let's run it all the time. But wait for this next video. Alright guys, so in this next arena, we chose Glacial Spike, right? Because it does a lot of damage. And these are my first arenas right after this duel. I was like, alright, let's hop into some arenas. Let's see how much damage it's doing in arena. Let's see how viable it is. But guess what? I'm playing with another DPS, not with a healer. The game's on somewhat of a time limit. The Arcane Mage, by the way, is playing my Invincible Arcane Mage spec that I posted yesterday or the day before. So you'll see here in a second, he's not really going to die because he has that Mage Armor. He's just spamming it over and over and over and over like he should be. So looks like he watched that Xaryu video. But anyway, this Hunter's out, right? Hunter's out, and I want to try to get a Glacial onto him. I still need to collect some Icicles, so I'm casting one Frostbolt. There's one Icicle. Two Frostbolt. There's two Icicles. Okay, Mage blocked. Another Frostbolt. There's three Icicles. Frostbolt, I could pair it with a Flurry to get my fifth, or I could use it to shatter with the Flurry. I use it to get my fifth. So now I have 5 Icicles. Now I can cast the Glacial. This is why it's difficult, okay, to do it in too specifically without a healer. By the time I got 5 Icicles, they didn't even really interrupt my Frost Bolts. I'm 50% life, the Hunter's 50% life, the Mage is 100% life, and my Warlock's taking a lot of damage. The game's just like, if I were to have just bursted, the Hunter would have already been dead, right? That's why it's hard to play a spec like this. Like, oh, it's really OP. It took him from 100 to 30. But let me just keep playing the video. It's like, okay, now he should die, right? He's 40% life. All right, so I casted the Glacial. I blink through him. He kicks me. Okay, unfortunate. Let me try again. I'm getting very low. I have to hop into maybe an Ice Block first. He's stunned. I throw out that shield, trying to cast another Glacial. Blink. Cast it. Feign deaths. And this is why, right here, guys, that it's just difficult to play a spec like this. Because if I would have just pressed Common Storm and Ice Nova, this guy would be dead, right? Of course, I'm testing Glacial, so I want to try to get that Glacial off. But this guy would have already been dead multiple times if I just did my damage. And that's why, to those of you that just a second ago were like, why would you not run this? It takes a guy from 100% to 30% in one shatter. It's just because it takes a little bit more setup than that, and you kind of have to run on the opens. I cast it again, and he uses Turtle, and it deflects it, right? It doesn't do any damage. So now I have to get 5 Icicles back. Now I have to get 5 Icicles back to even try to get that Glacial off again. Throw out the Common Storm, the Ice Nova, and the Orb, and guess what? The Hunter dies, right? The Hunter's just dead. I never got the Glacial off, and we killed the Hunter. So this is a prime video of an example of like, yes, it is good, and it might be good in those comps that I was talking about, and maybe even some more comps. It's very strong, but at the same time, it's just very difficult to get it off. So I guess the point of this video is mages have new mastery. Glacial Spike could be good, but it's very, very hard to actually get value out of it sometimes when you have so much instant cast pressure that you're kind of putting on the wayside to get those Glacials off. And then if you use your instant cast pressure, then you usually just get the kills anyway. Then you should just get your normal Icicles so you can burst even harder and then not have to worry about Glacial ever. Anyway, this Mage kind of turtles it out for the next few minutes by spamming out Mage Shield. You know what, bro? I do the same thing. I don't blame you. All right, GG, dude. GG, dude. I would have spammed my shield for a while longer. But here's the rest of this video. We eventually, I guess we can show the spike. We eventually, boom, pop him with that spike there. Hits for 7,000. It's actually getting a lot of damage. Here's the damage breakdown, and let's jump into the end of this video. Guys, if you enjoyed this video breakdown of new Mage Mastery, Glacial Spike, Theory, all of that kind of stuff, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you did not enjoy the video, make sure to thumbs it down. Talk to me in the comments about the stuff that you guys want me to test, all right? Even if I don't think it's good, even if I think it's crappy, I'll try it out, because might as well, and because there's so much new stuff with 8.0. So really leave your comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe for the next upload. Peace!